Okay, Shalom Uvracha friends. Thank you so much for joining me here, whether you're watching on Facebook or you're watching on the Light of the Infinite Festival page. It's such a privilege to be able to join together and to learn a little bit during this incredible time of Sefirah in collaboration with so many incredible speakers and presenters that I feel very humbled to have been asked to be a part of this. And huge thanks to Erez for putting all this together and all the incredible work that he does across the spectrum of like millions of different projects that he's involved in, which are so admirable and really remarkable. So we wanted to learn a little bit about the concept of the Sefiros. We are currently now, of course, in the period between Pesach and Shavuot. This is the period of time that's generally known as the days of Sefirah or the weeks of Sefirah. And it's interesting. Generally speaking, there could be large swaths of the Orthodox Jewish community or Torah community who are completely not attuned at all or awake or even conscious of sort of Kabbalistic or more mystical ideas. And this time of year, you're confronted by it. Like you there's no way to escape it. These weeks are actually called Sefirah. Like they're literally called the weeks that are energies for these very mystical sources or forces and sources that you don't find really in halachic literature, in the standardized curriculum of Jewish texts. These are very squarely within the Kabbalistic tradition, the Sefiros that we refer to, these spheres in English. We're going to talk about a little bit what they are over the next couple of minutes. And more precisely, when you talk about each and every day, counting this specific sefira and that specific sefira, and Gvura Shebechesed and Tiferet Shebechesed and so on and so forth, where you really have to get down into the particularity of understanding. It's not just called Sefirah because we count these days, but this is something that's completely universal, where we're attuned to the particular energy of each day, working on it. And so there's no better time than during this period to really reflect. What are these Sefiros? What is it? And what does it really mean for us, not just in the period of time of Sefirah, but more generally for our entire Jewish experience, which is really our entire lives, which is really from a Jew's perspective, all a Jewish experience. Because our Jewishness isn't something that we sort of like keep hidden away and take out a couple of times a year. It's not even something that's confined to more overtly religious spaces like the synagogue, the shul, or the Beis Medrash, a place where people study Torah. Judaism is life. For a Jew, it's wherever you look, anything that you're engaged with, whatever it is that you're doing, eating, drinking, hanging out, speaking, socializing, all of life is really, for a Jew, is an opportunity to grow closer to God, is an opportunity to connect to Hashem. And so the most incredible thing is that the Sefiros are much more than just sort of like a side element that you can take or leave, or like some things that the Kabbalah speak about but most people have no access to. Actually, the Sefiros are, as we're going to learn, and as I'm sure some of us already know, so maybe be a little bit of a review, but the Sefiros are the most fundamental blueprint for literally every single aspect of life, for every single aspect of our own personal identity, both emotionally and physically, spiritually, of course, as well as everything that we encounter in the world. On any single facet or any aspect of reality is all connected to the Sefiros in a very, very deep way. So we have to think about what these Sefiros are. What does it mean? What are these elements? We may have heard about them, but sometimes we can get scared off by them. One of the things that I regret about this particular book of mine, which is called The Story of Our Lives, it's a commentary on Rabbi Nachman's Story of the Lost Princess, is that right there in chapter 2, I sort of, in this particular approach to interpreting the story, I felt that I had to speak about the Sefiros in order to really get down to the depth of what this is. And so really, right in the beginning, we already encounter the element of the Sefiros, and I started speaking about it, and so many people told me, as I have like this chart over here, which you can see, and we go through the different Sefiros and their corresponding psychological manifestation and our physical manifestation. And so many people told me that they were scared off. So many people told me that they saw the word Sefirah and they closed the book, and it's right there in the beginning. So what a shame, right? There are so many people who are like allergic to this because they don't know that it's something that's either accessible to them, it's something that's relevant for them, or even something they can understand. And of course, it's all of those things. And so let's go really to the beginning. really to the beginning. And the beginning, in terms of this conversation about Sephiros, is the source in Sefer Yetzirah, Parak Aleph, Mishnah Beis. This is one of the primary texts of the Kabbalah. Some say that it's the oldest Jewish text in existence. Some say that it goes back to Adam Arishon, to the very first human. Others attribute it to Avram Avinu. Others attribute it to Rabbi Akiva. But according to everybody, it's a super old, well-founded, and universally accepted text. And the Sefer Yetzirah is famous for being the source that enables people to make like Kabbalistic magic or Kabbalah Masit, like practical Kabbalah, creating golems and controlling angels and different forces, things like that. And so that's why that, most people associate that kind of thing with the Sefer Yetzirah. But it's also a treasure trove of remarkable mystical and theoretical Kabbalistic information. It's one of the most fundamental spiritual texts that sit at the core of Jewish mysticism and Jewish metaphysics. And right there in the beginning, the Sefer Yetzirah makes reference to 10 of these quote-unquote sephiros, which there's really no good English word to describe them. I said spheres, or sort of energetic, different energies, but there's really no English word for it. And we'll talk a little bit about how to unpack what the actual word sephira means, like even in Hebrew. But it tells us that there are 10. And it makes it very clear that there are 10 and not 11. There are 10 and not 9. And of course, it's very cryptic, like many ancient spiritual texts, even across Lahavdil, but in other religions as well. Very old, terse, enigmatic texts that really capture a tremendous amount and need a lot of elucidation. They need to be worked through. And so this is how the Sefer Yetzirah sets it up. 10 and not 9. I believe it's first 10 and not 9, and 10 and not 11. 10 Sephiros Bilima. Bilima in Hebrew means, or in English, rather translated, Bili means without, Ma means substance. So the Sefer Yetzirah is telling us right away that we're going to be speaking about 10 I don't even want to say the word divine, but spiritual energies that reflect, as we're going to learn, different energies of the infinite. And yet the Sefer Yetzirah wants to make it abundantly clear that these are Bilima. These are not divine. These are not entities in and of themselves, beings to be served in any way or to be regarded as independent entities. They are Bilima. They have no substance of their own. They are just vessels for the true necessary extant, to use more philosophical language from the Rambam, and Rabbi Nachman quotes this in Torah and Beis in the 52nd lesson of Likutei Moharan, where he speaks about the Mechuyev HaMetzias, God as the necessary extant, which really means just the root of all of creation. The root of anything that exists, like existence as it is, like we refer to Hashem as Hamakom, like the place, the true root of all of existence. In the terminology of the Zohar, Kadosh, and other chief and primary Kabbalistic textbook of Jewish mysticism, calls Hashem the Ikra v'Sharsha Dekula Almin, the root and the Ikra, the principal, fundamental source of all of reality. So the spheres are not that. The spheres are Bilima. They are just vessels that hold and refract and reflect different energies that are coming off of this singular entity. Why is this important? Because the fundamental concept in Judaism, which we repeat a number of times a day, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, that Am Yisrael are expected to absorb into our minds and our hearts and to listen to it very carefully, Shmiya, with our heart, to be makshiv, to really come to this level of awareness that Hashem is one. And as is expressed later on in the pasuk in Devarim, which tells us that a Jew needs to know, V'yadata hayom hashvos halevavecha, a person needs to know in his mind and to draw it down into our emotions, that Hashem is one in the Shamayim mimal v'al ha'aretz mitachas, that there is nothing other than Hashem in the sky above and on the earth below. Ein od milvado, we're told. There's nothing else but Him. And so on a certain simple level, you can read that word to mean Ein od milvado. There's no additional God, right? He is God and there's no other God. And that's how you can read it. But the Kabbalists explain that on a much deeper level. What it actually means is that Ein od, not just there is no other God, but Ein od, there is quite literally no other anything. Ein od milvado. When we say God is one, we don't mean that God is, like there's only one of Him. We mean that God is everything there is. Ein od. Hashem is echad, singularly echad. Not one as in like 1, 2, 3, and he's just one of them. This is the all-consuming category within which every single particle of physicality fits. Anything that is in the cosmos, space itself, time, everything, ein od. There's nothing else but godliness. So the challenge is that we live in a physical world which, if nothing more fundamentally, is marked, literally marked by multiplicity. It's marked by distinction and by fragmentation, by myriads of different things within each category that have distinct edges where one thing ends and the other thing starts. And this is true for different ideas, different concepts, theories, different colors, different musical notes, different elements of creation, whether in the category of inanimate, different kinds of rocks, or dirt, or mud, or different things that are clearly defined and not each other. And then certainly when you move up to plants, when you talk about all the different kinds of plants, there are bushes and trees and different kinds of fruits and different kinds of vegetation and grains, and each one has its own properties. They're distinct one from the other. Wheat is not barley. Barley is not spelt. Each one is different. And then when you move up to talk about animals, certainly, right, a plethora of different animals, the whole animal kingdom, like up by Pride Rock over there, with thousands and thousands of different species of all different kinds of animals. We live in a world of multiplicity. We live in a world of fundamental duality that bursts into billions and billions and billions of different variations of things. When you speak about humans, our sages teach that each one of us has a different face. Now we know that each one of us has a different fingerprint. Each one of us has a totally unique DNA, right? That's what makes us who we are. And the whole human race is just, again, splintered into billions of different ways of thinking, different talents, abilities, capacities, perspectives, and so on. So the huge challenge is how do you parse the two realities? How, on the one hand, can we say ein od milvado? Literally everything is God, as one. Everything is one. And then at the same time, you look at a world where everything is many. And the reality that we live in is marked by multiplicity and distinction of fragmentation. So how do we understand that? It's a fundamental contradiction in terms. So the tzaddikim explain, the Mekubalim, the great soul doctors, the great guides and spiritual masters teach us that this is exactly the problem that the Sefiros come to resolve. 10 Sefiros, which are bli ma, they are not God in and of themselves, they are not godly, they are like guf bli neshama, they're like bodies without souls, that they're nothing without the divine energy, serve much like a prism to refract different aspects or different energies within the one, and to allow them to appear within this experience of creation, which is called the sphere of Malchus, which is the final of them, but we'll go through them in a minute together, to allow us to experience the one in the multiplicity of its manifold facets or aspects, or different elements that it contains fundamentally. And so at the root, at the core, everything is one. What allows the color red to be red and green to be green are the different spheros that are reflecting that fundamental oneness, which is the essence and the canvas of all of existence, and the energetic source for everything to manifest as different things that to us seem different and can be experienced as different and even defined differently, but God then becomes the category within which, no matter how many distinct categories you have, everything fits within God. He's the echad yachid umiyuchad. He is the category which includes all categories. He is the makom, the space that includes everything else. And not just like physical space, like the Nefesh HaChaim makes clear in the third shar, in the third gate of his incredible, remarkable work, Nefesh HaChaim. Not just like physical place. A table holds the book and the laptop in front of me. It's place. Not just that, but in a much, much deeper way. Place in a physical sense holds an object. If the place, or if the thing that it was holding, or the thing that's holding the object isn't there, like if the table suddenly disappears or removes, the book will just fall to the floor, right? It'll go to the next place down. That's how physics works. When we refer to Hashem as the place of the world, what we mean is that without that place, that particular entity cannot exist. It doesn't exist. It's not like it will fall somewhere else. It's gone. It does, because it's made out of the makom. It's made out of that place. The place isn't just something, when we speak about the divine as hamakom, the place isn't just what holds things. It's the theoretic capacity for that thing to exist in the first place. And if the makom wasn't there, there's no such thing as the musical note G. It doesn't exist. If there's no makom to hold that note, it doesn't. It would be just as much for us like the eighth note, the mysterious eighth note that we're taught, and it's all rooted in this deep, 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 very, very, very deep tradition of the Sefiros. That eighth note that will be revealed after Mashiach comes, that you can have the biggest musical genius, but it's not possible. You can't invent an eighth note. Our brains, because that element of makom has not been revealed yet. It's like a certain avenue is not yet open in existence. It doesn't exist. Can't think of another color. It's just that we have the colors that we have. And the fact that we have those colors is because there's a makom beyond it. What allows that makom, that fundamental infinite energy, to become reflected in all these different colors? The answer is the system of the Sefiros. The system of the Sefiros, say the tzaddikim, is the bridge between the finite and the infinite. Is the bridge between the realm of unity and the realm of multiplicity. In fact, if you think about the word Sefiros, so we said that we were going to talk about what it means. So all of us know that Sefira means to count, because that's exactly what we're in now. These days, these weeks are days of counting, and that's true. But if you think of it very deeply, what's the concept of counting? Where does counting come from? Counting necessitates that there are things to count. Then I can count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. There's a concept of things, and then I can count them. Otherwise, I don't need to count. The Sefiros are the tool that enables the concept of counting to emerge in the world. Because before that, it's just the infinite light of God. It's just one. The Sefiros reveal numbers. Now there are many. Even though fundamentally it's all one. And they themselves are blima. They don't have it. They're like bodies without a soul. They don't have anything of their own fundamentally. But now they're allowing the one to become revealed through creation in a multiplicity of different ways that can allow us to begin to connect to that infinite in various different ways that reveal themselves throughout the human experience and the human condition. The word sphera also comes from the word sapir. Sapir means to shine, like livnas even hasapir. To shine. It's amazing, as I think the person who put this whole thing together, this beautiful Jew, Erez, his last name is Safar. Safar is like a sapphire in English, right? It's a gem that shines, it glows, it's illuminated. Even sapir. The Sefiros are like illuminations. Each and every one of them is a vessel for the infinite light of God to become reflected and refracted in its own unique way, with its own unique illumination, thereby allowing for the concept of numbers and serving as the blueprint for all multiplicity. And that means, if you think of it, that any single system in this world, anything, where there is distinction, whether it's the different colors that we mentioned, whether it's the different musical notes that we mentioned, whether it's the 7 planets and the 7 continents, whether it is the 7 classical metals and so on and so forth, they are all going to root back in the different spheres. Our bodies, which contain so many different disparate elements, whether in our head, we talk about the right ear and the left ear, the 2 nostrils, the 2 eyes, the mouth, and certainly you speak in the general physique of the person. Why are humans created this way? 5 fingers, 10 fingers hopefully, but 5 fingers on each hand, 2 arms, a torso, legs. What is this? Where does that, we are one unified soul. So what's this concept of hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, senses, distinction, right side, left side, middle, different energies, what the arms do, what the feet do? What is this? What is this tselem, this image that the human being is created in? What is this form? And not just that it's just an arbitrary form, we're told it's a tselem Elokim. It's the form of God, but God is formless. God is infinite. It's the one thing we know about God is ein lo demus, ve'ein lo masigia, aguf. There's no such thing to attribute to God any kind of physicality, chas v'shalom, in any way, shape, or form. Quite literally, there's no shape and there's no form. There's no tselem, there's no demus at all. But what's the tselem Elokim? So the Rabbeinu Bechaya and others teach that the only form that we could talk about as it relates to the infinite is this bridge that we're talking about between the infinite and the finite. Is this process of creation that God unfolds and reveals himself through step by step, stage by stage, aspect by aspect, that ends up revealing at least a theological, philosophical, theoretical, conceptual, and spiritual form. And that form is called the 10 Sefiros. And what it means that you and I walk around in this world as a tselem Elokim means that we are the frozen echo of the bridge through which the infinite reveals itself into our reality. And this is true for every human being. It means you walk down the street, if you're a person who becomes a little bit familiar with the Sefiros, and you know what the form is, and what a little bit of the depth of the interactions between the Sefiros, and what's the connection between Malchus and Bina, and how do Chesed and Gvur come together to form Tiferes, and then you learn the depth of the face, and what's the concept of the nostrils, where they open downward, and the beard flows down, and hair grows upward, and the ears, and a person really discovers the depth of their face and of their body. Then you walk down the street, wherever you happen to live, and you see every human being that passes you, and it's just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing, because every single human being that you see is the frozen echo of the process through which God created the world. Everybody's always looking for God. Where do you go to connect? Which mountain do I have to climb and meditate on? Which cave or which tzaddik do I have to run to? And to me, it's like, all this is beautiful and great, not taking away. But when you look at another human being, when you look at yourself in the mirror, when you experience yourself, we're in ourselves. When you experience your actual self, it's a total trip. It's totally bizarre. We are it. We are literally the presence of the divine. We are microcosmic fractal representations of the whole blueprint of reality. And then a person begins to look around the world, and if a person knows a little bit more deeply about the spheres, what they are, how they were unfolded, what's the process, what does it all mean? Then wherever you look, you don't see a world that hides God. You don't see a realm of multiplicity that would seem to negate the oneness of God. On the contrary, what you see is a world where each and every disparate element comes together as different facets of a diamond to reveal the collective and the collectivity of the shining infinite light of the divine. And the world reveals God, doesn't hide him away. The world reveals Hashem. Like the Sfas Emes says, the world is called Olam, either because, as it's often interpreted, it hides God away, because there's nothing that's going to conceal godliness, which is oneness more than a world of duality. But to those who have been privileged enough to begin to explore this concept of the Sefiros and to get a little bit of clarity into what it is, this world is the greatest revelation of the divine. The greatest. It's not possible for there to be a greater revelation of godliness than right here, right now. This world is described by David HaMelech as the Even Ma'asu Haboinim. It's the stone despised by the builders, the stone, that which is the lowliest, the most unfeeling, and it's misshapen and it doesn't fit in the building, and the builders take it and they throw it away. And Hoyselu Rosh Pina, it becomes the cornerstone, it becomes the crowning jewel of the building. That's this world, and it depends. It's up to us in terms of how we want to see it. Either this world is going to be a malchus, which is the final sphere. We don't have time to get into all of them now, but very briefly, they are keser, means crown. That's generally associated with the skull. There is chachma and bina, which are two different cognitive functions that relate usually to the right hemisphere of the brain and the left hemisphere of the brain. The right hemisphere being more creative, universal, big picture, visionary, and the left being more scientific, detailed, intellectual, academic. So that's keser, chachma, bina. And then we have chesed as the right arm, gevura is the left arm. Chesed is just effusive kindness. Gevura is severity, limitation, withholding. And then we have tiferes, which is the torso. And then we have netzach and hod, which become the two legs. And then we have yesod, which is the reproductive space, in both the male and the female. And then all of those different energies are poured down into the final Sefira, which is called Malchus, which is kingship, kingdom. And that's our physical world. This world is the refracted sort of reciprocal and the vessel and the vehicle to reveal the multifaceted energies of all the different spheros beyond that are set up. If you've ever seen, I'm sure you've seen a little bit the chart of the spheros. So on the right hand we have Chachma, Chesed, Netzach. On the left side we have Bina, Gevura, Hod. And in the middle we have Keser, which is unifying Chachma and Bina from above. And then we have Chesed and Gevura and Tiferes in the middle. And then Netzach, Hod, and Yesod in the middle. All of these are unique channeling energies. Each one has its unique ingredient to the cake. And then like Malchus is the mixing bowl. Or even better, Malchus is like the mold that you pour the cake into and put in the oven and you can take it out and you can eat it. Like that's the world that we live in. Which is why you see all the different spheros manifest in the days of the week, in the colors of the rainbow, in the musical notes, in every single facet of different kinds of tastes. When a person tastes food, Rabbi Nachman says you can taste the different divine energies. And a person's own body, and so on and so forth, all in this world, because this is Malchus. But the scariest thing about Malchus is that either this Even Ma'asu Haboinim, this stone despised by the builders, can be seen for what it is, which is Haiselu Rosh Pina, which is the greatest revelation of the divine, and the greatest immersive experience in the energies with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created and recreates the world each and every split second. Amachadish b'tuvo v'chol yom tamid ma'aser bereishis, that God is constantly renewing the world, in which case there's no higher place than this, and there's no more spiritually sublime and gorgeous place to live than planet Earth. Or this Malchus can become detached from the structure, and we can look at this world as not refracting or reflecting any higher energies, or what are you talking about, spheros, things. Look at the world. It's a world of duality. It's a world of multiplicity. This plant has nothing to do with this, dog. This dog has nothing to do with that rock, and what this world is a multiple oriented, polytheistic in a certain philosophical sense. It's a world with many different sources. This doesn't come from one place. In which case this world can become a place that's incredibly dark. and incredibly disconnected. A place that's fraught with spiritual disconnection and difficulty, challenge. What's called in the Sfarim, it can be either a Malchus de Kedusha, it can be an experience of Malchus, which is that final sphere which we live in a certain abstract sense, that's bursting with holiness, or it can become a Malchus de Sitra Achra. It can become a vessel that just isn't reflecting anything. And it's taken over by the other side, which means the side that conceals Hashem's presence, the klipos, the shell that hide the essence. And it's up to us to choose. And that's the world that we live in. Hashem says, Hineni noisin lefneichem hayom, I've given you today bracha uklala. Put before you the blessing and the curse. That's this world. A blessing and a curse. Rabbi Nachman teaches that it's like the moon. The moon can either just be this rock that is cold and lifeless and devoid of illumination, or the moon can reflect the light of the sun in the most glorious way. It's up to us how we want to engage with this world. But very often what happens is that as we get entrenched further and further and deeper into this reality, we become convinced by it. And unless we're immersed in these teachings, which today it's not optional. It's not optional. Today we need these teachings. The whole redemption depends on these teachings. That's why there are festivals like this now, using technology for speakers and different thinkers all around the world, and different Jews to be sharing these teachings. It's crucial. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai taught us, coming up to Lag BaOmer, B'sifra da yifkin be'megalusa berachame. With this Zohar HaKadosh, you're going to get out of exile with mercy. There's no other way today because the world is so incredibly convincing in its distraction. And it's pulling us away from unity and into fragmentation and multiplicity and separation and ego and a lack of integration and synthesis and unity. That's the world we live in. And so today we need to be plugged in the deepest way. But so often, it becomes difficult to see the world as a sapphire, as different facets of one glowing energy, where wherever a person turns, they encounter Hashem's presence. It's so incredibly easy to get lost. And this really is what the whole book is. It's not a pitch for the book, but this really is what this entire book is all about. The story of our lives, it's a commentary on Rabbi Nachman's The Lost Princess. Without going to the depth of it, the princess represents Malchus. And we can either have the princess, which means that we live with this faith and we live with this vitality and hope and energy and rootedness and connectedness. But more often than not, maybe it's a universal human experience in all of our lives as we journey from childhood to adulthood. And we get further and further and further entrenched into this reality. The princess gets lost. And the whole story that Rabbi Nachman tells of the lost princess is all about how do we reclaim that? How do we reclaim faith? How do we reclaim a sense of hope and a sense of vitality in our Jewish experience, and more generally, how does a person get back in touch with this most precious of perspectives? And Rabbi Nachman's whole story teaches about this journey and teaches about the ups and the downs and teaches about what exactly the energy of the princess is and how important Malchus is for all of us and how we can, and that's the whole book. And so if you like, you're welcome to Google search away and pick up your copy. But the whole concept is that ultimately, studying the Sefiros, becoming familiar with what this concept is, won't just help you, like I began, in this period of time where we actually have 7 weeks and the 7 weeks of 7 days, and so it's 7 within 7, and that of course is the 7 lower Sefiros, like I mentioned, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malchus, but it's the most fundamental concept. People think it's like this there's some esoteric cherry on top, like maybe after a person learned everything else. To me, like, this is the aleph base. The aleph base. I don't know how people move an inch in Judaism without knowing this cohesive, coherent system, which literally sits at the core of our entire Jewish identity. All of our holidays, boom, fit in neatly to the Sefiros. All of our great tzaddikim, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, David, they're in the system. Everything that we love and adore, so many of the different details of halacha are all reflecting this fundamental system that is totally integrated with our own physical body, with our own emotional experience, with every facet of the natural world that we encounter. There's nothing more one than that. There's nothing more unified than that. There's nothing that communicates the light of the infinite, like the name of this festival, than that system. And so I'm so privileged to have had the opportunity. I don't know how many people, wherever you are in the world, if you're listening or if it's just me talking to myself, that's also cool. But I'm so happy to have had the opportunity to be speaking about this, because it's crucial that all of us take the time and invest the energy to really begin to understand what is this system. And there are many, many, many books out there. It doesn't just have to be mine. Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan has an incredible book called Inner Space, which really goes through them. There's a book called The Sefiros and the Self. There are many, many, many different wonderful resources that you can find. They are accessible, they are relevant, they are permissible for everyone at every age and stage and level. It's oxygen today. It's really oxygen. And so my blessing to you and my blessing to me and all of us, Hashem should bless us that during these days of Sefirah, we should manage to discover the portals that will allow us access to the great light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who we're going to be singing about on Lag BaOmer, and everybody dances around the fire and sings Torah Magin Lanu. His Torah protects us. He mi'iras einenu. It illuminates our eyes, but like most of us don't learn it. Like, we're singing about it, we're celebrating him, but we never access it. So Hashem should bless us to find an access point, to believe that it is accessible. It might be a new language. It might be something we're not super familiar with. It might be something that we weren't brought up learning about in yeshivas. It's okay. It's crucial. And you'll see how the whole Judaism comes to life. It's incredibly difficult to put together a puzzle if we haven't looked at the picture on the box. I don't know what we're supposed to be putting together. When you see the picture on the box, it becomes much easier. The Sefiros are the picture on the box. That's my blessing to you, my blessing to me, wishing everybody the most remarkable rest of Sefirah and an incredibly elevated and illuminated Shavuot up ahead. And thank you so much again to Erez for putting all this together, and to all of you for being here and listening. And Hashem should bless us to continue to learn together in the future. You can check out our YouTube channel as well. Just me, Rabbi Yaakov Klein, Elecha, many, many shiurim and Rabbi Nachman's teachings, and we go through all of this at length and in depth. There's just a little bit of a taster. And so who knows, maybe we're going to do some more learning together in the future. It would be my greatest privilege and honor. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shavuot up ahead. Thank you.